in the Bible, in the Old Testament and the New Testament. Sorry for the spoilers. Now you don't have to listen to that whole podcast. Let's see, what else have I learned? The other podcast that I've been reading? Do I read podcasts? The other podcast I've been listening to is called the Two Trees Podcast. And the last thing that I heard on that podcast was an interview with, her name is, what's her name? The name of the book that she wrote is called Walking in the Dust of Rabbi Jesus. So, I don't know if you know this, but Jesus was Jewish. Okay, you probably knew that. But what's the significance of Jesus being Jewish? The way that Jewish rabbis told stories, and this was not just Jesus did this, but all the rabbis, all the cool rabbis, when they told stories, they peppered their stories with parts of the Old Testament, with parts of the Moses and the prophets. So, for example, when Jesus is getting, and I'm not just saying, the way I say it that way may make you think, well, yeah, that makes sense that Jesus would quote the Old Testament because that's the only part of the Bible that he had at that time. Let's go to Jesus' baptism, John 1. Word became flesh. John the Baptist denies being the Messiah. John testifies about Jesus. John's disciples follow Jesus. Wait a minute. Where did he baptize? Is it Mark? Let's see Mark. Mark 1. John the Baptist prepares the way. The baptism, here we go. The baptism and testing of Jesus. At that time, Jesus came from Nazareth. Let's skip down. Okay, the quote that the voice of the Father says, "And a voice came from heaven, 'You are my Son, whom I love. With you I am well pleased.'" That one sentence, has 3 different quotes in it. Let's see if it says so in the footnotes. Scrolling. Yeah. So that verse was verse 11. Let's see if the footnote says anything. No, it does not say anything in my NIV Bible app. But that one sentence, you have to trust me, or you can look it up, be a Berean, do your homework. That one sentence has 3 different quotes. That's a cobbling of 3 different Old Testament scriptures. So that's what I'm talking about when they spoke. When I say that they spoke using the Old Testament. I'm not saying that they quoted like we quote things and we say, when Jesus did this, he said, and I quote. No, we're talking about like just in the sentence itself, they cobble together some of the sentences that you should know since you've been living with the Old Testament as a child, because that's what they read at night. That's what they didn't have any television. All they had was stories. They had stories of the patriarchs. The same way that we quote movies today, the same way that we quote the songs on the radio, the same way that we memorize, the things that. How much useless information do we have stuck in our heads about pop culture? How much Bible do we have stuck in our heads? Ooh, Sting, don't go there, artsy, that hurts. Yeah, it hurts me as well. I have a lot of NIV scriptures memorized, but the church I'm going to now, I started going to a few weeks ago, they read the ESV, so now I have to memorize a whole bunch of ESV Bible instead of NIV. I get to instead of have to. Maybe I should say I get to. One of these days I'm going to learn Hebrew. I think I do want to learn Hebrew. Because that's where all the action is. So the act of doing that, of peppering your words with scriptures, is called remez. And when you have multiple remezes, in Hebrew, the plural of anything in Hebrew ends with I am. Just like Mayim, waters. Nephilim is plural. I'm not going to blow your mind. Should I blow your mind? Should I say Elohim is plural? What? Spiritual beings, Elohim is plural. The word for spiritual beings is plural. Oh, okay. Yep, I could have blown your mind there, but I chose not to. I chose to use the word spiritual beings. And another thing. Oh my. This is... All right, story time. Story time. So I got a call from a friend of mine from one of my previous jobs. He's a Christian as well, and I did some art for him some time ago. And he's out of the blue. He said, "Hey, how would you like to do some art for my..." So what he does, he lives in New York right now, and he is working on a theater/movie company. And he wants a